Funding for this edition of Think Tank with Steve Adubato has been provided by the New Jersey Education Association, Wells Fargo, New Jersey Sharing Network, the Russell Berry Foundation, Making a Difference, the Turrell Fund, supporting Right from the Start NJ, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, Summit City MD, a provider of primary, specialty, and urgent care, Caldwell University, and by St. Joseph's Health, world-class care just around the corner. Promotional support provided by ROINJ, informing and connecting businesses in New Jersey, and by NorthJersey.com and Local IQ, part of the USA Today network.
Welcome to Think Tank. I'm Steve Adubato. During this Teacher Appreciation Week, we recognize and honor our teachers now more than ever. In these very uncertain times, our teachers are adapting and changing the way they teach, including online, in ways that no one could have imagined. And remember, many of these educators have children of their own at home. This particular program features 4 terrific teachers. It was originally taped on February 25th, 2020. So let's take a look at this very special edition of Think Tank, saying thank you to our amazing teachers. Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. This is Think Tank. We talk about public policy, a whole range of topics on this show, but today we look at the question of global citizenship. What does it mean to be a global citizen? How exactly do you teach global citizenship? Well, we found 4 extraordinary educators to break it down. First, it is an honor to introduce Helen Corveleyn, who is the STEM educator at Hopewell Valley Regional School District and the 2020 Mercer County Teacher of the Year. Congratulations.
Well, thanks for that great introduction. I appreciate it.
And also we have some other Teachers of the Year here. We have Dan Willever is a social studies teacher at Ramsey High School and the 2019-2020 Milken Educator Award winner for the great state of New Jersey.
Thank you, Steve.
Sergeant First Class Harvey Craig, who has been with us before in a one-on-one interview, is the Army instructor at Irvington High School, Junior ROTC, and the 2017 Essex County Teacher of the Year.
Thank you.
And finally, Leah Jerome is a social studies teacher at Pascack Valley High School and the 2020 Bergen County Teacher of the Year. It's impressive.
Thank you.
I want to be the broadcaster of the year, but after 30 years, it hasn't happened. So here's the question. I've always been someone who is fascinated by the world but doesn't travel much. Can't learn it just in books, can you?
Nope.
A, what does it mean to be a global citizen? B, what are you doing to help students get there?
I think the most important thing is that we expand our students' horizons, and as a social studies teacher, it sort of gives me that platform. I know Dan probably can speak to this as well, but just getting our kids outside of the confines of our classroom has been just such an opportunity for me to expand their perspective and get them outside of their comfort zone.
Why'd you go to South Dakota?
I go to South Dakota every year with my students and my colleague Marissa because I want our students to understand other parts of this country as well, especially the long-term trauma that has happened to the Native community of this country and the still thriving culture that they have. So going out to South Dakota, spending time on the Pine Ridge Reservation, the Cheyenne River Reservation.
And you're in Pascack Valley.
From Pascack Valley.
That matters.
Yes, it does matter because we're the Indians.
Yes. No, here's the thing.
Yes.
People they come from all these towns, 565, I think, communities in New Jersey.
Yeah.
We have no context to what the history is, how it's connected to the larger world. So being a global citizen is critically important. You push this as well, don't you?
I do. And much like what Leah was talking about, Steve, I think that for elementary school students, you really have to start with giving them a voice where they are.
How old are your students?
So they're kindergarten through 5th grade.
Go ahead.
And so when we do that, I do that a lot through my green team at school for teaching planetary stewardship and global responsibility. So if you give kids a voice and you know that kids are going to be able to take that and people are going to hear them and listen to them, you empower them to then go beyond the walls of their town. So plastic bag ban comes up, and my kids are there and presenting.
Talk about that. They went to city council. What did they do?
They did. They put together a presentation on single-use plastics and wowed the crowd that was there of adults, and came back and said, I can't believe they listened to us.
What happened?
They listened to us. So
Did they make a policy change?
they did. They did. They
What?
passed the bag ban in our town. We worked with the Watershed Institute, which was a great policy-making entity. So they're seeing community conservation in action. They're seeing how people work together. It's not a single person, but a single person can have a loud voice.
Are you implying you can't beat City Hall sometimes?
Well, you know, we do what we can, and we just say positivity. Put the positivity out there.
I'm so blown away by the fact that those students are so involved. And as I think about this, Dan, there are some folks out there watching and others who have said, come on, young people, whatever age you want to pick, selfish, self-centered, obsessed with social media, and not caring about the way you're shaking your head.
It's just not true.
Go ahead.
As somebody who interacts with the most remarkable young people every day, they are engaged, they are passionate, they want to make a difference in the world.
What do they care about?
They care about gun violence. They care about economic security. They care about college affordability. I think it says a lot that, we need a new generation of leadership in this country that speaks to those issues. Our students are on the rise, and they're going to embrace that challenge, that opportunity. We're seeing it every day in our classrooms. We're seeing it when they go abroad. We're seeing it when they engage with local leaders in their communities. We're seeing it in class discussions where they're engaging really passionately with them. They're in civil discourse, which is something that we take for granted, right? Because students can do it. Every day I see it in my classroom.
Yeah, let's talk about that. But before I go to the sergeant, the whole idea of civil discourse, I'm fascinated by that. The young woman, Greta, is it Thunberg? Thunberg, yeah. Leading initiative, I believe 16 years of age, around the global warming initiative. No name calling, no personal attacks on her end. Not to say that there were not adult elected officials in Washington that did not do the same as related to a 16-year-old young person leading an initiative. Here's the question. How much impact did Greta have?
You know, I think sometimes we like to look at the impact one person can have, but Greta, I think, would also acknowledge that she's not just one person, that she has a whole movement that's standing side by side with her in the fight for change. But
did it not show, excuse me for interrupting, did it not show what, I'm not saying what one person could do, but was important, is it important to profile her?
No, it's a great example, whether it's Malala in Pakistan or whether it's Greta in Denmark and the work that they have done globally for women's rights, for global warming. Students can see change makers among their generation, and that's definitely inspirational to them, and it's something that we acknowledge as teachers.
And so it's interesting, Sergeant, we had a compelling one-on-one interview with you, and I ask you to go to our website. You'll see the website come up right now at steveadubato.org and check out Sergeant Craig's interview with us, compelling on many levels. But you believe that we need to teach patriotism to young people. What is the connection between teaching patriotism, global citizenship, and the work you're doing with the junior ROTC?
Well, JROTC, our mission statement is to motivate young people to be better citizens. That's the mission statement. Comes straight out of Cadet Command. And a lot of folks think that we want to push young men and women into the military. It's not. You can be a citizen by just doing the right thing in your community. I like what he said about Greta Thunberg. There's a website, I don't want to push this website or not, but it's 3-.org. And it speaks about a lot of young teenage global leaders, global citizenship leaders, that these kids are taking up this fight all over the world, from climate change to hunger to water. So it's all over. So our young people do realize that something's out there, and they got to lay down their footprint.
You know, I'm realizing something today. I don't know why. Sometimes you get caught up in preparing for these shows and you forget what's going on around you. Our daughter happens to be in the 5th grade, Olivia, and she was telling me today, I said, what are you doing today? And I thought it would be, math, reading, that's all good. She said, Dad, today's World Learning Day. And I said, what is World Learning Day? And she broke it down for me. Olivia, if I get this wrong, I'm sorry. She said, each one of us, we're in a group and we come from a different country, and you have to tell other kids who are there what is important about our country and what they need to know. And she told us what country she had. She told us what she learned about it. They're going to do traditional dances from those countries, without going into a lot of detail. Yeah. They're doing it at the school. It's in a wonderful Montclair Public High School. Yeah. But I think to myself, what's age appropriate in terms of a kid starting to travel?
That's a good question, and kudos to your daughter's teacher, because that sounds like a great project for them to do at
Another
such a
great
young
public
age.
school teacher. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's never too young. It has to do with maturity, and I think middle school kids can get out into the global world. My kids are in high school. I've taken sophomores overseas. And
16-year-olds.
15, 16
You
years
have them.
old. Yeah, absolutely. And they
Are they
rise to the
scared
occasion.
sometimes?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the cool part of it. It's let's expand their comfort zone. And doesn't matter where we go in the world, just seeing them get outside of their Bergen County community and that growth that you see on these experiences, I think that's a big part of the education.
Dan, jump in. I'll come back to you, Sergeant.
If I may, Steve, Leah's absolutely right, and those types of travel abroad experiences can be remarkable for students. Students don't need to travel abroad to appreciate the diversity of this planet. I think oftentimes our schools can be bubbles, even our local communities can be bubbles. We live in an incredibly diverse region of the country, and students don't oftentimes get exposed to that type of diversity. So with my AP Human Geography students, we've gone to local houses of worship to interact with Muslim communities, with Hindu communities, with Zoroastrian communities. These people are here, they live amongst us. We should interact with them, we should try and understand one another and the diversity that exists within our great state and our great country. And it's through those types of relationships that we form empathy for one another and understand that we're all citizens of this great country. We're all patriotic Americans, and we all want to see a better world.
Well said, Sergeant.
We had 2017. We sent 2 of our juniors. They're both of these young men. One is a sophomore at Drexel, and the other one's at Penn State. They went to study abroad. One went to Uruguay, and the other went to Albania. And they both said when they came back and they briefed the Board of Education, it just blew their mind. And it blew the mind of the boards because a lot of folks don't realize we get that opportunity to send our kids outside of the 3-4 square miles of Irvington. They get to see the world is much bigger than Irvington.
You know, it's interesting. I said this in our one-on-one interview, Sergeant, as a student of leadership. Check out our leadership programming. Spent a lot of years trying to understand it, and I always tell people my book is called Lessons in Leadership, largely from the mistakes that I continue to make as a leader. What has this done, Helen, what does this do to create the leaders and the kind of leadership for tomorrow that we need?
So we need to really prepare our kids and offer them good mentors, the mentors that are sitting around this table,
Right.
the people that are here to be able to say, what is global citizenship? What does it look like when I came back from Malaysia from studying the palm oil crisis that's happening with orangutans in the summertime. And when...
I don't want to go past that.
So when I was in Malaysia, and Borneo in Malaysia, and Borneo, the palm oil crisis that we're really facing worldwide, that's affecting a myriad of endangered species. And so when you go and look at that and you live immersed within the Malaysian people and you see how complicated this issue is, we need to be able to prepare our kids to be able to say it's not a one-sided thing. And to be a leader, you need to make sure that we're acting as a larger expanded group. So you can have somebody who is a Greta, but then all of the people that she's inspiring is expanding that circle so that we're working together and doing that through leadership and doing that through,
Powerful, well said. Sorry for interrupting. Let's do this. I'm going to go to a break right now. When we come back, I'm going to put out another question. I'm going to give you a chance to think about it in about 10 seconds. So some people might say, look, we're talking about global citizenship, expanding the minds of young people and seeing that the world they live in is much bigger than Bergen or Essex County or whatever county we're talking about. But I also wonder, and I'm not the only parent and broadcaster who thinks this, are too many of our young people making the world smaller because of their obsession with social media? After this on Think Tank.
To watch more Think Tank with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
Welcome back to Think Tank. I'm Steve Adubato, talking global citizenship with 4 extraordinary educators. So I put this out there, Leah, and my question is this. If, in fact, so many young people are walking around, sitting at the dinner table, doing whatever, talking to each other, or not, with their phones right in front of them, we're talking about global citizenship. Is that not a contradiction?
That's a great question. It's a great point. It's something we grapple with every day, and I think it's not just with kids. I think that any age group also has their phone in their social media, and I think there's pros and cons to social media.
Excuse me, it keeps us from interacting with other people on a more human level.
Absolutely, and I do think there is a point where we need to say, put down the phone and have a conversation with the person next to you, and I think there needs to be a concerted effort from the adults in society and from the teachers and the educators.
But how do you do that when you're on a trip?
To put the phones down?
No, do you literally say, no phones?
Every once in a while, there's a time to say no phones. I think there is a benefit and a pro and con to having a phone. I think, hey, listen, you're out in a different country, take pictures, explore it, film it. I'm a proponent of that. I don't discourage that. But when you have an opportunity to go up to somebody and talk to them about their culture and about their community, that's the time to put the phone away.
Someone else on this. Yep.
Yeah.
If I may, Steve, Lee is absolutely right. There's a time and a place for the phone, but phones aren't going away. We have to teach students how to learn to live with this technology, right? They're being inundated every day with an overwhelming amount of information, and not all of it is honest information.
The vast majority of it not particularly
Right.
usul either.
Media literacy is such a crucial element of our
Information literacy, define it.
Information literacy is thinking about how we consume media, how we digest media, and what is the danger of a single narrative. What's the inherent bias that's present?
Single narrative meaning I only go to websites, I only go to places, I only go where it reads.
Confirmation bias,
Confirmation,
Steve.
whatever you
Yeah.
think. How is that? You're actually helping your students get ready for the 2020 presidential election as it relates to information literacy.
I want my students to start with the bare bones of what's a healthy media diet look like, right? Just like we focus on health class on what a healthy food diet is, what's a healthy media diet look like? What media are you consuming every day? What does that say about you? How does it affect the way that you view the world? And when we get down to that level, students are going to start to think analytically, think critically about, oh, wow, I consume a lot of that particular source of media. How is that changing the way that I think? Maybe I should diversify where I get my information from or the type of media that I consume, and that can make a difference, right? We need well-rounded citizens, not citizens that are being fed a particular point of view every single day, or that are being fed information that's not accurate.
Yes.
And what's the purposeful point of technology, right? So we have technology at our fingertips, and technology is a great avenue. From a STEM perspective, we want to make sure that we're incorporating that technology, but how is it purposeful? How is it meaningful? How are you detaching from it when you need to? And how are we using it as a tool and not just a resting place?
Yeah.
And it isn't a question of whether it is there or not, because it will be there. It is largely a question, as I'm listening to all of you, of how it is used, not used, how it can be more effective to make us more global citizens. Let me ask you something, Sergeant. How do you deal with the social media component?
Well, I know for in Irvington Public Schools, with the cell phones, we have a no policy on the phones.
No.
Right, so no phones in the classroom.
Wow.
Now, I know for us in ROTC, how I get around that. In my lesson plans, I placed it. I want to allow the kids to use the cell phones if just in case they can't use their Chromebooks. So my partner and I, we watch the kids on, like, I love what you said about the technology and the different sites. Now, I'm going to go back, I'm going to date myself. Technology, I remember as a kid, we used encyclopedias.
How dare you?
So we use encyclopedias.
And my students would say, what's an encyclopedia?
Exactly. And then, but now we know it's just, we just have to embrace it, and we have to deal with the change with these kids. As simple as that. We have to deal with them and change with them.
Well said. And by the way, if you're just checking this out, this is Thinktank. We're talking to 4 extraordinary educators about global citizenship. I'm curious about something else. In an age in which there are a significant number of public figures, particularly in Washington, but across this nation, who are looking to close our borders more. And I'm not going to get into an immigration debate. That's not what this is about. But let's just worry about devil's advocate. Let's just worry about ourselves. Let's not let so many folks from around the world into our world and our country, because this is our country. America first, and for some it's America only. It's not political. It's a question of a view of the world. You don't buy that, do you? Can you survive? Can you thrive thinking of the world that way?
Well, I think this is where I love being a history teacher, because I can teach this all in a very important context. And we can go back in the history of the United States and think about when we did have that mentality and what it meant to shut our doors to refugees in the 30s, and what did that mean for the world community. And I think it's really important that kids see themselves as global citizens, and that we need to be empathetic to people and, open doors and understand the people around us more than trying to alienate ourselves.
When you took your students to Auschwitz,
Yeah.
talk about it, please.
The worst place on the planet, exactly what I thought it would be. It is somber, it is hallowed ground, and you get a very strong sense of that when you're there. And the education you get there is nothing, what I felt there, I can't even articulate. It's something that when you go there, you just feel it in your bones, and you see the dangers of the worst of humanity, and you hope that the students understand that too, and I know they did.
Did you have the students talk about it?
Absolutely.
Could they talk about it?
Yes, actually, you really can't leave someplace like that and not debrief their feelings, because it has so many implications.
Leah has given a great example of this already with being a history teacher, and I would just add, any good lesson, whether it's in a history classroom, a math classroom, a science classroom, starts with inquiry, getting students to ask a question and seek out an answer, right? Particularly, I think, in the humanities with all the problems we're facing as a society. So you can get students to consider what are the pros and cons of globalization. And that's really a lot of the anxiety that we're experiencing as a country is around this issue of globalization. Get them to think critically about it. It's not as simple as asking, should we build a wall? It's what are the forces driving our society? What are the forces changing the world? Having them question those forces and gain a deeper understanding of them.
That's not too complex for kids?
I don't think so. I think our job as educators is to ask the type of deep questions that they can grapple with and have meaning for their lives.
Well, let me complicate it even more. Sergeant, fair to say that you and your colleagues teach and promote military history?
We do. We do teach. That's a part of our curriculum, military history. The kids, many of my kids do go into the service, so some do. They're not forced in, so JRTC, that's not a part of our thing.
Right.
Again, our mission is to motivate young people to be better citizens. So, but I really want to get what you said. I like what he said about the diversity. In Irvington, my students are Haitian. My students are African. I have many kids from different Spanish-speaking countries. So that's the world.
It's global there.
That's the world. So we had to let our kids know you are part of the world. And their parents brought them here to Irvington, to New Jersey, to get a better life. And we have to provide that life to them through education and let them know they are a part of this world.
It's more important than ever that while we are so diverse because there are so many different people who come, they're people. When you're Italian American, when you say you're people, come from other parts of the world. Our family happened to come from Naples, Italy. The fact is, it's becoming more and more diverse, but if we choose to separate, that's not really a choice that makes sense.
Well, Steve, it really kind of comes back to what we've shared here today as far as being culturally responsive.
Culturally responsive.
So culturally responsive teaching is really taking a look at implicit bias, is taking a look at everybody, no matter what the composition or the demographic of your school is, that your fifth grader is going to be able to be exposed to books, it's going to be able to be exposed to all different types of influences to become a good global critical thinker, to have the tools at their fingertips to be able to say, when I leave fifth grade, I'm going up into high school, and it doesn't matter where I am in the state of New Jersey, but I know that when I'm being taught, it's going to have a good and critical look at being culturally responsive.
And that is why, quote unquote, when people talk about global warming and saving the planet, it's not enough to say, well, my town's fine.
Right. True. Right.
I mean, right?
Right. And that's where you have to expand outside of your circle. You're saying this might be our town, but what are we looking at in other places? Whether that's access through video, whether that's access through CNN Heroes, whether that's access through, different, and that's where media comes in to play the good guy.
Is it to not make it feel so far away, Dan? Is that our job to not make it feel so far away?
I think our job is to make our students feel like they're a part of it. It doesn't matter the distance. It doesn't matter how far away Afghanistan is. These are human experiences. The experiences that my students have today are not the norm. Our students in this country, for the most part, that's not to say there isn't inequality, a lot of them live exceptional lives compared to other people in the world. So it's getting them to recognize the diversity of the human experience.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned in the time we have left, you said it's not a question of inequity. It is actually a question of inequity on another level. Suburban school district, suburban school district, suburban school district, urban school district. As we end this program, I'm curious. It's not by accident that disproportionately most of the programs to help students become global citizens are in fact in suburban, more affluent areas.
Yeah.
we need to do much more for those who do not have the resources.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. And, I've talked about my travel experiences. It doesn't elude me that this is the result of being in an environment that can afford these trips. But like Dan made a point before, it's not the only way we can make global citizens. And to your point, the technology is not always the enemy. It's a way that we can use it as a window into the world. And there are people within our own communities that can come into our classrooms and share their experiences, whether it's Holocaust survivors or people of different cultures,
Four extraordinary educators teaching, promoting, and living global citizenship every day. I want to thank you all.
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
I said thank you for your service.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you for your service as well.
Thank you.
That is it for this particular edition of Think Tank. Make sure you check out Think Tank, the podcast, for conversations just like this one. The only difference is there's extra exclusive commentary and analysis available only on that program, Think Tank, the podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and a variety of other digital media platforms. I'm Steve Adubato. That's it for this particular edition of Think Tank. But remember, most importantly, especially if you want to be a global citizen, I'll get that out. Think for yourself. See you next time.
Think Tank with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by the New Jersey Education Association, Wells Fargo, New Jersey Sharing Network, the Russell Berry Foundation, the Turrell Fund, supporting Right from the Start NJ, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, Summit City MD, Caldwell University, and by St. Joseph's Health. Promotional support provided by ROINJ and by NorthJersey.com and Local IQ. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.
I could feel my lungs fill with oxygen, and I got my life back.
The Sharing Network means to me hope, life, and everything.
The Sharing Network was a lifeline to me when I really needed it.
We are an organ procurement organization.
The core purpose of the New Jersey Sharing Network is to save and enhance lives.
To honor those who gave.
Pay tribute to those who received.
Offer hope to those who continue to wait.
And remember the lives lost while waiting.
For the gift of life.